Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Book Asylum. I'm Jen, JL Folk, as some of you know me. I wanted to welcome our new guest, but just wait because we've got like probably one of the coolest book covers I've ever seen, and I cannot wait to hear what's inside. Check us out. I want to welcome Patrick to the podcast. And as everybody knows, Josh and Heather from Water Tower Hill Publishing almost screwed it up.
All
Everybody say hi and welcome, Patrick. This is your
Hello.
first time with us at the Book Asylum. We appreciate you guys, all of you, taking the time to come here and, kind of we're here to talk about Patrick and his book and everything. So I'm excited. Patrick, tell us your title and give us a rundown.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I want to thank Heather and Water Hill Tower Publishing and Joshua. I always want to say Water Hill, but it's Water Tower Hill. But really appreciate everything that Heather and Joshua have done for me in my book. And you were talking about the cover. We had gone around a few times with developing a cover, and we couldn't get it right, and a little frustration. But I mean, nothing big deal, right? Just like
Yeah.
how we work this out, right? And I had done a photo shoot with one of my friends downtown, and the photos weren't working. And then one day, Josh calls me and says, I've got it, and he showed me it was brilliant. I mean, I loved it when I first.
Really?
Yeah.
It sure is. I love it.
Yeah, I can tell he was like, he was going over it in his mind and what, but he just popped this out. And
it's just like almost like a walking dream. I just saw it in my head. So
it's amazing. So it's called Blood Set.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it about?
Set means like gang. That's like another word for gang.
Mm-hmm.
One of my poet friends from Fresno, who's known around California, Idee Badina, one day came up with that name. I called it something else, but Blood Set takes place in dystopian modern day Fresno, because many places in Fresno, if you come here, it's pretty bad, right? It has one report came out that said Fresno out of any other city in the United States has the highest percentage homeless population out of any other city. Although Los Angeles has around 70,000 on Skid Row. So you see elements of that in here, right? It's dark, it's gritty, it's based in Fresno. There are three gangs, three major clans. One is a vampire Mexican American clan whose roots go back to ancient Mexico and medieval Spain, and they have a farm, a ranch here in Fresno. They grow these things called blood grapes to make blood wine.
Okay.
Yeah. And the second gang is one of the major vampires went to an area in Fresno that I live in called the Tower District, which is like the arts center, but there's lots of pubs and bars. And she goes down to Tower District and she bites someone who was a meth addict. And then she becomes addicted to the blood of meth addicts and starts her own coven. If you think vampires are twisted and wicked, right? Meth head vampires are
even worse.
He writes it so beautifully.
I've seen it firsthand, right? I mean, Fresno is also deemed the meth capital of the United States. So
okay.
Yeah.
So what's the third gang?
The third gang is a skinhead werewolf gang in the hills. I live close to Yosemite. I'm 45 minutes away from the entrance to Yosemite and Kings Canyon National Park.
Okay.
Sequoia. And they live in the hills. They have roots in ancient Germany, though they're not Nazis. They're traditional skinheads. But of course, the old rivalry between skinheads and werewolves comes into play. But it's like Twilight on meth. So,
see what you did there. So, this book, where did you come up with this crazy idea for this book?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of us, I grew up with horror, right? I mean, I'm older than you guys. I'm 53, and oh man, for many years I had just intense nightmares because my parents took me to the drive-in when the Shining first came out, and The Exorcist.
Yeah,
I saw Exorcist, The Shining, Salem's Lot, The Omen, all when they first came out. I was a little boy.
Oh,
and I was terrified as hell. But
Those are good ones,
that's
too.
still in me a love for horror, right?
Mhm.
I've always loved Dracula. When I was a kid, every Halloween for 12 years, I was Dracula. Always.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
So did you like watch the old were you the old Dracula, like the old timey or
Yeah,
were you
I loved
just
all of
the
them. I loved it
okay.
all. Yeah.
Just horror is just your thing.
Especially 70s American horror. I think that was the zenith of
Oh yeah.
American cinema for horror, right?
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. So okay. I asked this and I'm sure Josh and Heather are probably sick of hearing me ask this. Trigger warnings. Do you believe in them or do you have them on your books? And what is your stance on that? Because that was kind of it's been a big deal in the author community, especially, if you're reading a horror novel, you
Sure.
already know that it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
you feel about them?
There's lots of bad places in this book, right?
Mhm.
There's sex, there's violence. These vampires are bloodthirsty beings and they rip people apart.
Yeah.
The whole book's a trigger warning.
I like that.
But I teach American history, and often
Mhm.
in my classes, where I show documentaries, and we're dealing with really powerful subjects. It might be a rape in a movie. I always warn my students, right? You can leave the class for 10 minutes. I'm not going to be marked down. I respect that. But
Right.
But for this book, there's lots of violence and sex and blood and gore.
So you have been warned officially, people. so how is this your first book that you've authored?
It's my second novel, but the first one's really weird and convoluted, and Joshua really helped me out in really thinking about next am I right, the plot line and the storyline, and I'm not really schooled in this in novel writing, and Josh has really helped me out a lot and just given me ideas on how to write a novel.
Yeah, they're both a wealth of information.
Yeah, but this is my second novel. My first one is more like a purgative process. It's also set in Fresno, and it's a story of coming back to your family, and but also there's a meandering through the drug world in the underbelly of Fresno, and yeah, involvement in a Pentecostal cult that I was also involved with in my life at one time.
Oh wow, okay.
So
Wow.
let me tell this story really fast because he brought it. So Patrick is not only an amazing professor and teacher, he's a hell of a student, because I wanted to approach a situation with his book in a way that not only could he see that I respected his story, but it needed some moving around, some we call it developmental editing, but that when he moves forward and writes in a novel kind of setup, there's a way to kind of try to make the plots work out, right? So I spent a really long time taking his entire book and plotting out all of the 3 different covens and the backstories, and I made it into a Visio diagram with colors, and I wanted to present it as almost like a lecture, as he
Shocker.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is we actually ended up not changing it developmentally so much. We just made it understandable for a reader that's not in Patrick's head right now, right?
Right.
So we put information in there to tell the reader where we are. We broke out backstories into their own chapters and stuff. And really and truly, we took his amazing imagery, his fantastic plot lines for backstory and stuff. And I see Bloodset as setting up what this kind of series is going to be. He gave backstory that the next book he doesn't have to go into if you read it.
Nice.
But man, did he take notes? He understood what I was saying. He enjoyed my whole thing. And when we got his edits back, it was so very clear that he just jumped leaps and bounds ahead in his own writing career and stuff. And it was so amazing to see the teacher become the student, and now he'll go on to be a teacher. I think you should get a PhD in writing now and teach the students, because the feedback from this book has been just ridiculously fantastic. So
that's awesome. That's really awesome, because that was my next question. Where was if you were a planner or a pantser? Because I'm a very well known pantser. I fly by the seat of my pants, let the story take me wherever. But this sounds like it needed to be planned out.
Yeah. Well, I just wrote it, and then Joshua helped me go back and revise and plan. And I really appreciated his efforts to teach me and guide me and draw that diagram, because I love learning. You know, I never get tired of learning, and I want to become a better writer and author, and I really appreciate his guidance on that.
I'm really excited. I cannot wait. My TBR list is getting longer and longer by the minute with you people. Yeah. so this is pretty much, it's a vampire dark fantasy novel.
Yeah, let's preface with, it's a Chicano vampire story. It is 100% in Patrick's culture. And what I appreciated is he let this guy delve into that with zero understanding. And I didn't want to remove the magic of the culture, the lowrider culture, the cholo, even the female. I don't know what the women are called. I said it for a long time. I kept calling her, is it Chica? The chicas and and that's, as I was formatting, I'd go to bed and I was like, Chica.
For a while.
He was practicing.
I didn't want to steal his culture, but this book is written for his culture 1,000,000%, right? It's very entertaining for anybody, but this is an homage to where Patrick came from. Let's just get that out of the way. It's not your run-of-the-mill vampires and werewolves and stuff. Patrick has such a beautiful and colorful culture and an understanding of the ancient parts of that culture. I mean, he's a professor of it, right? And it is so clear in this book. He's a master of not only the culture, but how the people in that culture would like to read a story, right? With the things that they would want, the shoes and the paintings and the clothes and the cars. Are described so distinctly and so real. And that's the feedback he's getting from people in that culture is, you're one of us. This book is one of ours. It's amazing. And I tell Heather all the time, I don't always just publish stories. I publish platforms and people. I'm people first. And working with Patrick has given me a weird door into a culture and a platform and a population I would normally not have any kind of a part of. So it's not just a vampire story. It's a vampiros cholos story. Right?
I love it. I love it. I love it.
What you had for dinner.
And I had tacos and margaritas for dinner.
Tell them what you had for dinner.
Barria tacos.
Nope.
Oh, wow.
Still not right.
How do I say it? She told me at the restaurant.
Birria.
Oh, birria. Okay.
Dip it in the stew.
I have to order it for him because he can never pronounce it correct.
Was it beef or goat?
We don't know. It just says Mexican stew meat.
Okay.
Patrick's like, I know.
It could have been donkey or horse. I don't know. No idea. It was good though.
Yeah. Birria's really good.
Yeah, we were talking the last podcast. We were talking about margaritas and tacos and how happy some of us would be with that. So, of course, she had to tag me in the picture. But so for you, when you, how long did it take you to write Blood Set?
About 3 years off and on. I wrote it during my summer vacations. The last two chapters were hammered out. Well, most of the last few chapters were hammered out. I took a couple weeks off and we rented a cabin along the coast up in Napa wine country and overlooking the ocean. Just
no technology.
No, but then
that was beautiful. I bet that was nice.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
So we needed, I needed more conclusion than what he sent me originally. So I called him up one day, and it was during halfway through one of his semesters, and I was like, Patrick, I need more, man. I need a few more scenes, or everybody's coming together. You're setting up this big thing. I need it more. And yeah, he took like a vacation or something and knocked it out and sent it to us, and it was
nice.
It was perfect.
So it took you about 3 years to write this, and you said this is a series. So you kind of gave that away.
I'd like it to be. So as Joshua was saying, I also teach college history, and my background is in colonial Latin America, medieval Spain, and also modern day Mexican American history.
Nice.
And I also teach history of Mexico and the Aztecs. I teach a history of the Aztecs and Mayans and Olmecs. And so these vampires, their blood rituals go back to the Aztecs and Mayans.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Write what you know.
Yeah. I wanted to really capture that. And I don't know if Patrick likes it or not, because they are like moon worshipers. But on the back of that, we got a piece of art right there with his culture and stuff.
So amazing.
I love
your cover is amazing.
I love that whole cover. Yeah.
It's great. So about how many books do you think how many are you planning on? We'll start with that.
Well, every one of these characters has a backstory, and I want to write all their backstories because I love history, right? So, and even though they're Mexican American, it's a multiracially diverse, just like Mexico. Because Mexican is not a race; it's a culture. And in Mexico, there's African descent, there's Italians, there are Greeks, there are Jews, mostly Native American and Spanish mixture. So these vampires, there's twins. They're eternally 21, and they're from medieval Spain. There's a African Mexican vampire who escaped slavery in Alabama, or one of those, and she went to Mexico to escape, and she was bitten by a vampire, and now she is pretty much Mexican, Afro-Mexican, but she's black. And one of the other main characters is Irish Mexican, who came over during the Mexican-American War, during the Irish potato famine in 1848. And I'm not sure if you know the history, but many thousands of Irish immigrants were conscripted into the American army to fight against Mexico. And thousands crossed sides when they started fighting in Mexico and say, hey, we're fighting fellow Catholics. There's the Virgin Mary. The Americans are treating us like shit. And they crossed over sides, and that they created the St. Patrick's Battalion. Yep. And it's one of it's the very first time that Aaron Go Brach is used on the green flag and the harp is during that war. They created during that war. And so Wedo, one of the main characters, was one of those St. Patrick's Battalion soldiers.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
My God, I can listen to you talk all day.
He's a red-haired cholo, but he's freckle-faced red hair, but he's Mexican, Irish.
Yeah, that's Irish descent stuff. Some of us are cursed with, some of us aren't. It's got the freckles, and
it's a car that tracks for me. Being an Irishman myself, I identified the most with him. His garage. So he ran the garage kind of thing, but his car specifically it's an old hearse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sweet. I'm a big car person. I do. I like, especially if you've got an old muscle car in the mix. Oh yeah, give me that.
And that's part of that culture now in Fresno too, the low rider, but then the bikes too, right? One of the covens is a bike riding coven, and the bikes themselves all have their own distinctive personalities and stuff. And he really plays on that really well. So I always talk about this one scene where it's the alleyway in the Tower District, and there's tons of homeless people down there, and it's in the middle of the night. And he writes it from the point of view of one of the homeless men. And all of a sudden, these bags of meth just start dropping everywhere, like manna from heaven, right? Whoa! And they all start shooting up and everything, and like they're all flying high. It's the best meth ever. And then like the lights from the bikes cut on at the end of the alleyway, and it's just this like line of these just
meth head vampires.
But that's what they do. They created a bloodbath of high on meth homeless people, and he keeps the one guy alive, and he has to go back as a snack, take home, I don't know what it
doggy bag.
And then he uses that character's POV to describe the headquarters where they live.
I love it.
But Patrick, I don't know, because Patrick hasn't been super in the writing world like we have been, right? We're inundated with it. I don't know that he truly understands the magic that he wrote in this book and the way he wrote it. And because we do know that, I didn't want to lose any of that, right? And especially like I wasn't going to put my foot in there and be like, I want it this way. It's so beautiful, even not even being in that culture. It could not change. This man knows it so well So I love telling people about that scene, and it's
we lovingly refer to that scene as the Meth Head Massacre.
Meth Head Massacre.
That's a great title. That's exactly what it is. Thank you. Those are great
That's
words.
great. Yeah, that's great. So, okay, so do you have the bug? I guess is my question. Are you like seeing stories and everything that you look at now, or
Oh
are
yeah,
you just like you're itching to write? You're like, God
I-
damn it, this
yeah.
job is getting in the way of me writing.
It is. I mean, I wish I could write fiction full time. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm an historian and I like what I do as an historian. I love my research, but really,
right.
my ultimate life would write fiction all day long. I mean,
Yeah.
and
That's what I've always wanted to
I
do
have
too.
several sequels in my head ready to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many books do you have in progress right now?
Well, I'm working on a history book I need to finish. It's I did 2 years of research at the Superior Court Archives and researched about 1,000 criminal court cases and how various immigrant groups are treated by the justice system from 1890 to 1945. I got 2 chapters left on that, and I want to get it done by December. Then I'm going to hit a sequel hard for this series.
Okay. And I completely get having to kind of put that off to the side because, first of all, criminal cases are not exactly the most fun to read in the first place. All that legal jargon, it's all Latin, and you're like,
well,
okay.
These are actually kind of fun because they're written almost at the tail end of the Wild West in Fresno. And so
Interesting.
I was doing my research. These criminal court cases hadn't been open since 1910.
Wow.
And I found evidence. I found opium rolls. I found a loaded gun. I found a bloody bank bag. And yeah.
Oh my gosh. That does sound cool. That does sound cool. Is this a dissertation?
It was my dissertation that I finally needed to turn into my book.
Ah, got it. Okay. All right.
Also,
That's awesome.
Jen, if you follow Patrick, he's not a 2-trick pony. He's not just a history teacher and a writer. He's a fantastic photographer. And I need to come over for dinner like every day for a month. His pictures of his food that he
and Heather are welcome in my house anytime you're in California.
We won't leave. We love Mexican
Sincerely.
food. It's for breakfast. And
we just recently got to be friends, Patrick and I. So I haven't Facebook stalked him yet, but
the cool thing
that is coming.
Like every other writer, he puts those gifts into his book. So his characters grow blood things, right? The grapes to make the blood wine, and they cook with it too. So they have whole banquets of blood food and blood wine and stuff. That's just you're like reading it, lulled into a sense of like what this is going to be from like Twilight and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's nothing like that. So I love that part too.
So do you like to cook in addition to, is cooking one of your hobbies that you like to do, or is it just you like to go out and get good food?
Both. I love cooking at home and I love good food. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm a foodie. I don't care. I don't want to cook it. Just make it for me and I will eat it. Mm-hmm. Mama ain't never missed a meal. But so do you where did your inspiration come for gangs? I mean, I understand it's your area where you're at, and what you've seen over time. Oh, yeah. So you've got the gangs. What inspired the vampires? What inspired you throwing in vampires in there?
I've always loved, like as I said, I've always loved Dracula since I was a little boy, and it was my favorite monster. I was Dracula every Halloween. Mm-hmm. The gang thing, I grew up around gangs.
Yeah.
I mean, I have cousins doing life who are hardcore gang members. Mm-hmm. There was a gang called the F-14s in Fresno who were associated with the Northern California Mexican mafia kind of gang. And so I grew up with that kind of thing. Even though I was never in a gang, I was kind of like in a punk rock gang, but we weren't hardcore gangsters. We're more like a crew in the 80s.
Right.
But I've seen gangsters. I've seen shootings in my neighborhood. I live in a neighborhood where I would hear gunshots every night.
Yeah, that's where I came from.
Yeah.
And I live in Tucson, and I don't hear it as often anymore. But
can I ask him an interview question?
Yeah,
absolutely. Please do.
So, Mr. Fontes, Dr. Fontes. I would like to know how a boy from Fresno, who's still in Fresno, becomes Dr. Patrick Fontes, college professor, photographer, now novelist. Who drove you down that road, right? When all of your friends and cousins and stuff like that were doing the gang stuff and everything. How does Patrick Fontes become Dr. Patrick Fontes?
Yeah, that's a hard question because I don't want to sound selfish or arrogant or.
Then don't sound confident.
I pretty much did it on my own.
Yeah.
My parents went to high school, but they didn't know about any the college pathway, right? I in the 80s I was a hardcore punk. I never went to school. I took my test, my proficiency examination in the beginning of 10th grade and left. And for the next several years, just went to punk rock gigs and had a havoc of a time. And we just, but then I went to Fresno City College when I was 18, and I've always loved knowledge. Even when I was running the streets in 15 and getting in fights, I had a library at home. And I think I credit my mom because while she was pregnant, she bought an encyclopedia set and was reading to me while she was pregnant.
Oh.
And her relatives would make fun of her because, they were like farm workers and construction workers. Like, what the hell are you reading to your kid when you're pregnant? She just got this idea. He's going to be a book lover. And from my earliest memories, I've always been a book lover. And I think that probably is what did it.
Did you always want to be an author?
I always wrote. I was the kid with the teacher, I'm sure you guys were too. The teacher read your stories out to the class from the second grade onward, even though I was always in trouble in the principal's office. I always wrote. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think it's great because you really had everything kind of coming at you from every which way, And,
I was in and out of juvenile hall, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Look at the difference between your children and your own background. You did that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, they're far better. My son's a far better man than I was at his age, so I'm very happy about that. I can say that with pride that he's a better man.
Mine too, and that's kind of our jobs, right? That's
right. That's all we ever really ask for of our children.
Yeah,
just to be better than us.
My favorite thing now, just because I'm such a proponent of this, is teaching my kids that while you need to work hard and pay the bills and do all that, follow your dreams, even if you have to do them both at the same time, and hope that the one overcomes the other, right? But don't not do it. We only have one life to live. If you're not chasing your dreams like your hair's on fire, what are you doing? And like with Murr earlier and his son, who we signed at 22,
wow,
they're seeing that, right? They're seeing their dad do it. Like Patrick's children are seeing dad do it, follow your dreams. He opened his books with his daughters and they were joking around and having fun. But I'm sitting over there with like a tear coming down because they have a father who's writing books and he's opening them and they're there joking around and everything. And he's so present with them. That's
wonderful. Cool. I love that.
Yeah. So when you, do any of your students know you are an author of a?
Yeah, I tell them. I invite them to my book signings and that kind of thing. And
how many book signings you been to?
I've had a couple so far. My first one was made right after the book was released by Waterhill Tower, May 5th. I think the following Saturday. Sorry.
I saw the look of defeat.
I'm sorry.
It was hard. I know, but I couldn't name it anything else.
No, that's true. And I had one last Saturday at a local bookstore, and
awesome.
there's a haunting pre-Halloween convention here in Fresno, and they've given me free space to have my table there for a couple days. And that's the 17th and 18th, and the 24th I'm in San Francisco at this cool underground indie bookstore called Medicine for Nightmares, and I'm going to do a reading there. It's a really cool bookstore. That
sounds good.
I didn't tell Patrick. I have 2 sisters in the Bay Area still, and they're going to both be there. So
okay, great. Yeah, Medicine for Nightmares, the 24th, and I'm really grateful that they give me a chance to read there.
Have you done any conventions or anything yet?
No, not yet. No.
You're going to get a couple more books.
Ask Patrick what happened at his first signing, what it was.
What happened
Oh,
at the first
yeah.
signing?
It was a vampire costume party, and we had a great band there. It was
Oh,
like
that sounds like fun.
it was 80s dark new wave.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
think about like The Cure, but like darker. And
Yeah.
so that band played, and then one of my friends' punk rock band played, and people came dressed like vampires with
Oh,
teeth.
that just sounds like so much fun.
I'm pretty sure some of them weren't dressed up as vampires.
That's, that's our normal everyday attire.
No more Fresno goth.
This isn't fiction. Come on.
So when you're at home and you're clickety clacking away, what kinds of, do you need to have it quiet?
Oh.
Do you have to have music in the background? I need snackies, what do you have going on? Where are you at?
I usually have like dark ambient music on.
Mm-hmm.
I even have dark ambient music on when I go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I go to sleep listening to creepypastas, which is weird. But for most of this book, I know it's not real. I know it's not real. I mean, I feel like I'm possessed in a way. Like I feel like I've entered the world. I don't feel like I'm creating a world. I feel like I'm just like scratching the surface and like removing the smudge of a window, and I'm like peering into the world.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
They become so alive, and toward the end of the book, like the last 3 chapters, I had nightmares.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like they were clawing at me when I was asleep. I know it's not real, but it's just my mind was just so into the characters,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you feel like the presence is there.
I will say I've had that where you have the dreams of your story playing out, and sometimes I wish I would remember them, because as miserable as they might be, it might be something I'd be able to use in my book, but my brain is kind of trying to work it out, and I'm sitting there yelling at my characters like, don't do that, or come this way, or something like that, and that's all I remember of the dream. But I think that getting into it like that, that's you're an author. That's it has to happen like that. That is what process. Yeah, exactly. Your subconscious is processing everything. But and it's funny because sitting here talking to you, you got your PhD, you are highly educated in history and stuff like that. And I find it interesting that I really was expecting kind of you're very down to earth, bro. You're very down to earth. I was really honestly, especially from California, I was expecting a very stuffy man sitting in that chair.
You have the wrong idea of Californians. That's why.
I don't know. They moved out here to Arizona. Okay. I've met a few.
Well, you see, I'm from Fresno.
Different California.
Where I live is like a different country than LA or San Francisco. This is like living in the Midwest, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah, there's lots of.
Hey, I can get down with the Midwest. I'm from Ohio.
Yeah, during the Dust Bowl, this whole area was filled with refugees from the Dust Bowl. So
I'll tell you this, Jen. I had the same feeling before because he's got a pedigree, right?
And yeah, you're pedigreed. You have papers. Right. I'm a mutt.
And so even when he submitted to us, and Patrick was the very first author Water Tower Hill signed, but besides our books. So we knew we were blessed to work with Patrick, but also I was so intimidated to call him and be like, what can I do? Like, what do you want me to do here, bud? And then the first time I talked to him, I swear I was like talking to a buddy, like, hey, what's up, man? Yeah, let's get this done, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, sir, you need to be wearing twill and having an English accent. And and then I started reading the book, and I was like, this dude's he's legitly cool.
He's a down dude.
I mean, my dad was a construction worker. My mom was a waitress. So I mean, I'm a working class background.
Well, I definitely appreciate that, because I was really nervous. I'm like, oh, I hope I don't sound like an idiot. Very glad that
my kids, both their grandparents were Okies from Oklahoma during the Dust Bowl. So love that side of the family too, right? Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So the next venture, we were first writing your book about on your doctorate, and then you're gonna write number 2. Are you gonna stick in horror for the rest of your time, or are you gonna challenge yourself?
I want to write this series, right? I mean, that's like
Right.
on my list after I write this history book.
Right.
Yeah. But
Are you just
eventually I want to write my own story like Joshua has, right?
okay?
And we both come from like adversity and
Mm-hmm.
overcoming and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's important.
I'm not from very far where he's at right now. I was born in Berkeley and grew up in the Bay Area. So
yeah,
I think it's important that, people get their memoirs out there and, have their, either it's an autobiography or whatever, that something to show, this is what happened. I went through this, and this, because it actually could be very therapeutic, not only for you, but for someone else.
Yeah, I have some crazy stories from the 80s. I mean, just to mention a few, I won't go into details, but I was beat up by a Hell's Angels with a baseball bat when I was 15 and left for dead.
Holy crap.
I was stabbed. I'm in a gang fight and stunned by police officers and hit in the head with a crowbar by cholos and lots always in the paddy wagon.
It always ends with the paddy wagon.
Crazy stories.
You could have been so much more educated, but they just took it right out of you, right?
Yeah.
All the concussions,
Yeah. Holy moly. So what do you do if you do have 5 minutes of free time? What do you do? I know you like to hang out with family because I've seen that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that pretty much it? You just kick it with family, or?
No, I like to go hit the streets and do street photography. I love to cook. I live in California, so I love road trips. I just went to Monterey 2 weeks ago, and there's so many different places I love to travel in California. Drive down to Los Angeles, Hollywood, and San Francisco. California is great for road trips. So I love to fish and camp, and I love fishing and camping.
Awesome. So you really are just kind of a well-rounded individual, because, I mean, now do you camp or do you glamp?
Oh,
I camp.
He camps.
Yeah, real camping. Me and my son go up to the high Sierras, and we have to go up this pass called Kaiser Pass. Mm-hmm. It's one lane on a mountain, the edge of a mountain, and it's really sketchy because if a car's coming this way, you have to go up the mountain.
Holy
but it's
crap.
really fun.
Yeah, and you're not getting a hold of him. He's had to let us know when he's out, when he's camping.
There's no reception up there.
You've gone twice already this summer, right?
Yeah, I went twice with the kids.
Yeah,
that's nice.
We didn't do anything with Dr. Patrick Fontes during those times.
Yeah, because once you cross a certain town, there's no more reception for anybody.
Yeah. That's camping, right?
Yeah.
Catching your food. That's camping.
Yeah. Well, one day my son and I went on mushroom hunting. I love mushroom hunting, and we found this snow mushroom. It's about almost the size of a football, but like a Nerf football maybe. It looks like a giant brain. Wow. It was the best mushroom I've ever eaten before. It was so deeply.
That sounds amazing. I love mushrooms.
Put it on the stick over the fire. Like, how'd you cook it?
Well, that night we were cooking tri-tips, so there's no better barbecue than a camp barbecue. I take lots of steaks and tri-tip, and so I was cooking a tri-tip over the fire, but I also had a pan with butter, and I sauteed the mushroom up.
Yeah,
that sounds so good.
It was great.
I was like a mushroom popper on the steak. So
yeah, it was great.
So what is your favorite? Now, we're getting in the culinary aspects. What is your absolute favorite dish that you would love, you could eat over and over and over and over?
Oh man, that's so hard.
I know, right?
I love short ribs. Like when I was a kid, my mom would make a spaghetti short rib dinner. So she would cook the short ribs and also make spaghetti, and we'd have it together. And
interesting.
That's my favorite dish.
Interesting.
Those kind of family meals like that are awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, whatever your mom makes, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Patrick. Some of your breakfast, dude. I already have had breakfast, and I have to like a hobbit. I'm like, oh, we're having Patrick's second
breakfast.
It's when I have the girls over. I have a son and daughter who live with me, but every other weekend I have my two youngest daughters over. I make a huge breakfast for all the kids, and I really enjoy that, and they love my cooking. They go home and tell their moms. Their moms get irritated. Oh, your dad made you what again? Like,
Stop coming to me with that. You're not getting it here.
yeah.
That's great. So later, I mean, are you? So let's just say this turns out, okay. This works out for you.
Mm-hmm.
You can quit your day job. Are you quitting your day job?
If I can, I mean, that's a dream. But if the dream ever happened, I would totally quit and write fiction.
Without dreams, we wouldn't have your book, and we
Yeah.
wouldn't be here. So I mean, here we are. It's
I
still
mean,
a possibility.
in one sense, I mean, I am living right. I'm teaching history, and that was my dream job, right?
Mhm.
To get a PhD and teach history, and I love being in the classroom. I love it so much.
That's awesome. You're a rare breed.
But this would be like a lot higher than that, right? If I
Yeah.
can write full time and just sit and conjure up worlds, I mean,
Yeah.
I would love that.
That's the difference between telling real stories or other
Yeah.
people's stories and you being able to tell your own.
Yeah, just creating a world is just
Mhm.
I love that so much. And seeing and feeling the characters come alive and almost like flesh and blood.
Yeah.
Right? So wonderful.
So we're getting close to time, but I wanted to know, other outside of watertowerhill.com, which is the main website for the publisher,
Mhm.
where can we find you? Do you have an author page? Are you on Amazon? Do you have an Insta?
I have Instagram and also the
Give us
Amazon.
the deets.
Yeah, and Instagram and Amazon also, right? So
Okay.
Instagram Patrick_Fontes and
Okay.
Although we put all his links on his author page on
yeah,
Water Tower.
also on the author page on Water
Yep.
Tower.
We try to make
So
it
if
easy
you,
for everybody.
and that's awesome. I really appreciate that, because then we can just tell people just to go to watertowerhill.com.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
So, but yeah. So when do you anticipate your second book coming out?
Well, I have the end date for this history book for December, and I'm really working on it because I want to write the second book really bad. So January 1st, I'm going to hit it hard.
So
And
next year, pretty much 2025
I'd like to. Yeah.
is sometime in 2025. You'll be on book 2.
Yes.
He knows he has an open slot, even though we're filled up through the end of 26.
Right.
Anybody in the family that writes follow-on books and stuff, open spot. I don't care.
Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it. And eventually, I want to write a recipe book for this world.
That would be so interesting.
What was the
That
one?
is such a great idea.
Yeah, he had a blood omelet for breakfast, and it was the craziest thing. It's something with the eggs, like the blood in the eggs and stuff.
Mhm.
It was crazy.
Oh God, if I read this book and I start getting hungry, I have a problem. I want to thank Josh and Heather for coming back again for like the umpteenth time. I want to thank you, Patrick, for being here.
Thank you.
You're so amazing. I am so excited for your book. I hate the fact that my TBR list is getting longer, but I'm very excited and I definitely want to support you. And anybody out there, go to watertowerhill.com. They can find any of their authors, including Patrick here, and his book on the website, including any of his socials or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's an approachable guy, guys.
He is.
Don't be so nervous.
No
Thank
reason.
you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And you guys all have a great day out there.
Thanks, Heather, Joshua, and Jen.